And we're back. That's the risks of the risks of modern day live streaming. I'm just reviewing the so we're setting up a personal assistant today. I'm just checking the email I got back from. I'm not sure where I went wrong, but the GPT responded with quite a bit of details and a markdown format. I'm going to have to figure out a structure that email. If I go back and have a look at that. So this is the email I got back here. I can see that it's giving me markdown, which is fine. I didn't specify markdown, but that's what it gave me. That's fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to sit here and contemplate my, we'll hit the save button, think about what next steps are. I think we definitely want to set up another scenario. Sorry for the dropout, everyone. I had to reset my network. I was on the wrong network and I could see I was having some streaming issues there, so should be fixed now. I really like N8N. It's a little bit more advanced. I like that it has some RAG query stuff built in. I like the, I play with all the tools, Late Node, N8N, Make.com, Zapier. My customers use lots of different tools. I think there's some things I like. One of the things I like about Make is just the accessibility and simplicity of it. Very easy to get into. N8N has a few more advanced use cases, and I like their interface. I like the way they allow you to organize things. Yeah, it really depends on the scenario. So I think next steps from here, there's a couple of different things. We've got our custom assistant extracting the website data, but it's only doing it from the actual domain. It's not actually doing like a full-on scrape. So I would definitely need to build this out. And I don't know that that's something that we can do on the live per se. So I'll have to look into some tools. I've been using VoiceFlow a little bit lately, and one of the things I like about what they do, and I looked at that for this, was if you give it the domain, they will just go out and scrape a site and put it into a knowledge base. And I think that's pretty cool. I don't know that it's going to be practical for some scenarios, because if you just had it scrape a site and they just happen to have a ton of blogs or a huge site, you're gonna burn up your knowledge base credits with VoiceFlow very quickly. All right, user 9733 says AI will automate this. You can already can with O on ask to create a JSON for N8N and just paste. Yep, I'm sure it works fine. I'm sure it works fine. I use it to create JSON for all kinds of things. I just don't use N8N because I just use Make most of the time. I like N8N though. I've played with it. They all generally do very similar things. Again, one of the things I've used N8N for that I haven't figured out a nice way to do in Make is you have nice integration with, or better integration, I guess, with like some vector databases and doing RAG queries and stuff like that. And N8N has the ability to do chat, like the chatbot, embedded chatbots directly within their system, which is kind of nice. I'm using VoiceFlow, which is a little bit more, most of the cases where I would want to use N8N, I'm using, I'm building out usually chatbots or something, so VoiceFlow probably makes more sense. Owns NXG asks, can I use the automation to post videos I make on a schedule? Yep, definitely. I wouldn't use, I would use the automation to do either distribution or push them into a system that is going to do the scheduling for you. In theory, I guess you could set it up. Like for instance, if you wanted your automation to run once a day and post something for you, I don't post directly to social media from my Make.com or any automation system for that matter. I usually push a draft into some other system because that's one of those, your social media is your, I mean, unless you're just doing it for fun, but if you're like me or a business owner, you should not just have your AIs just arbitrarily pushing data out onto social media. That falls into that high risk category for me, because your presence, your brand, your connection with your customers is the life force of your business. And so if you just hand that responsibility arbitrarily off to some system without any kind of assurance that it's going to do exactly what you want, that falls in the high risk category for me. Coffee's the lifeblood for me. Holy. Okay. I think that's all the questions we have. So next steps here. What we're trying to do is, I think now that I've just got a really basic automation, our second workflow, which is being called by the first workflow, has the ability to just go download a website. I'd be curious to know, let's just go ask ChatGPT. Just say, I'm looking for a third-party service or system where I can give a domain or a URL and that service will scrape the website. I want to have a fairly fine degree of control where I can specify what depth to scrape or maximum number of pages. The service needs to integrate with make.com or at least have an API. I suppose I should be using the new search GPT feature. So there's a few of these. Appify, that might be the one we end up going with. I wonder if there's a free one we can use. I never thought about Scrapy Cloud. That's actually a good option. So we can build the scraper and then deploy it that way. I use Scrapy a lot, or Scrapy. I used that a lot in the past. That's interesting. It actually should not surprise me that they're still around. Octoparse, Parse Hub, WebHarvey. Bright Data I use quite a bit. I don't think they have arbitrary, or maybe they do, advanced web scraping infrastructure. I have an account with these guys. I don't know that they have just arbitrary scrapers, or maybe I didn't look into it close enough. Data miner, scraper API. Let's try, let's go to Appify first. I actually don't, I think I'm using the wrong terminology here too. I don't want a scraper, I want a crawler. So actually, let's take that opportunity to take this same prompt and we'll come back and we'll do web search. And we want to crawl, not scrape. So those are different things. Crawl and scrape are different things. Yeah, let's try that. All right, now we're trying the new ChatGPT search engine. See if it comes back with the same stuff. So it said Appify again. Oxy Labs web crawler, Crawly, Scrapy came up again. Elastic web crawler. I didn't even know this was a thing. I actually want to go look at that just out of curiosity. Elastic web crawler. I wonder what their, that's an interesting pivot for Elastic. Open web crawler. Yeah, that actually makes sense to me that they would provide a, okay, now that I think about it, they're providing a service that'll let you crawl and just automatically index that into Elasticsearch. That makes a lot of sense. They used to have their big thing back in the day, pre big data, pre AI and all that, was their Elk stack, right? Run your logs into Elasticsearch. So there's no surprise. Shouldn't surprise me. Now they're saying, here's a web crawler you can use. I don't think that this is going to, so they want to give us a Docker image. I don't think this is going to work. I'm just looking for an API. So I think we'll probably, though it's tempting, one of the things we could do is since they have a Docker image, and I think this is out of the scope of our project today, but they have a Docker image, so it might be a fun project to take their Docker image and spin it up into like AWS Lambda or something. So we could just access it on demand. So then what we could do is in our scenario, when we hit this second scenario that goes to crawl a website, instead of this just going out and hitting the website, it can access the Lambda function. Now, there's going to be some challenges there also, because we have to keep in mind that if we hit a website and there's, say, 100 pages to crawl, how are we returning that data? What does that look like? And once we get that data back, how do we put that data into our custom assistant? There's going to have to be some infrastructure there. I will typically use a system like, so I'm bought in a little bit to something like Amazon Web Services, because they have a lot of little building blocks that would make this fairly easy to do. So the crawler could go out, and as it visited those pages, you could just put each of the pages into like a bucket, which is just an object store in the cloud. And then later on, we could just retrieve all of them when it was time to put them into our custom assistant. I think for now, what would be good enough is if we went to a website, if we went and crawled that website, if we just pulled the top level, and I imagine most websites aren't going to have more than about, I want to say, 5 or 6, maybe 7, 8 top level web pages. And I'd love this to be smart enough. Maybe it'd be worthwhile tinkering with a custom GPT or a prompt or something that would be like, here's the site map. Can you just pluck out the URLs that, like, we don't want, if it's just some random URL of some article, or like worst case scenario, I think the scenario I'm trying to avoid here is that I want to crawl a site. I want to pull the client's information. But if for some reason they've already paid some SEO organization to build out a bunch of articles, and they have like 300 AI generated articles on their website, that information is not going to be useful to me. So I think maybe what I want is like pull 10 of the top level pages, and then if they have products and services, pull that information and pull, I don't know, 10 blog posts. Like if I could get to that point, I feel like that'd be a big win. There's probably going to be a little bit of work just to get to there. But that being said, if I can get to the place where I have a pipeline that could do exactly that, pull up to 10 top level web pages off of a site, and then any products or services, again, up to a limit, and then N number of blog posts. So we end up with, say, let's say 10 at the top level, products and services, let's say 5, 7 of each, so that's say 25, and then 10 blog posts. So if we ended up with 35 or 40 pages, that'd be ideal, because that's a nice number to stuff into a custom assistant and start asking questions about. That would allow us to formulate. And I mean, not every company I'm going to work with has that level of website set up. Sometimes I work with folks that don't even have a website at all, in which case this isn't going to be helpful. But if I can simplify, I think usually what I'm looking for when I'm looking at a client site is like, what do you do? I need to know what you do right away, so I have an idea of how I can come prepared into a meeting with, like, here's some ideas that are going to be helpful right off the bat. And then the blog definitely is going to tell me like what you're working on, what's sort of the context or the headspace of the company right now. The blog is going to give us a lot of information, or at least some clues. So let's see. I don't know. We might luck out. Let's go and have a look at Appify for a second, because maybe somebody's already solved this problem. Zapier's fine. I use it also. I think make.com and Zapier, and for most of the stuff I'm doing in an automated platform like this is relatively, it's either low frequency or it's low complexity or both. If I'm getting into like high level logic, a high degree of like if this then do this, or loops or any of that kind of stuff, I'm probably not doing it in a system like this, I'm probably using a custom script. I use Jupyter Notebooks, which is pretty well right into coding. With AI, you can go a long way without knowing with only knowing very little. You can go quite a ways. But as far as Zapier, Make.com, N8N, Late Node, they largely all do the same thing for me. Here's a content crawler. It almost sounds like this is exactly what we want. What I want, though, is a little bit of control over what we get back, because I don't want to just feed in a URL and be like, give me back everything. I want to be able to specify how much we get back. And actually, I guess in the world of AI, it shouldn't surprise me that a lot of people, if you have a, sorry, just to jump back to Joel's comment here, again, they all generally do the same thing. So if you have a use case specifically, there are some where like maybe an N8N might make more sense. I tend to use Make.com just because I find it very user-friendly. It's very accessible. It's easy to get into. Zapier's got a few more flow control features that are kind of nice, but it also can feel a little bit clunky sometimes, even though it's got a few more edge cases where it might have a little bit more horsepower. But yeah, by and large, they do the same thing. Jessley? What language? You mean in the Jupyter Notebooks, or what specifically? So this is going to use a headless Firefox. Circumvent anti-scraping protections. That's a big thing. What language for the implementation? I must have mentioned there's a bit of a lag here. So just if you don't mind clarifying that for me, Justly, if I said something that you were asking the question about, or because I'm not quite sure how to answer that. LSCI, what do you use the Jupyter Notebook for? I use Jupyter Notebooks for everything. Everything. And I'm not a data scientist. I'm a software engineer, but if you're interested, I can give you a 30-second demo of Jupyter Notebooks because they're super powerful. Let me pull open. Just got to find, not that one. I'll just open a new window. Let me just pull open a folder. What one do I want to do here? Let's do, let's do this one. This is for a client. Let's see, open this folder. So this is a notebook that I put together where one client I was, now for everybody who's not a programmer, I don't want to lose everybody because we're not going to dive into programming. I just want to show how accessible this is, even if you're not a programmer. A notebook is basically where you can, the core feature is not necessarily code, but that you get these cells, these little cells where you can get some code in there, and then you get back output. So even these titles, these are text, so you can type your own stuff in here, right? Own stuff. And then when you run it, it renders that as text so that you can replay these or use these as an interactive script that you can come back to. You can fully automate it, or you can come back to it and walk through it step by step. And the nice thing is that anything that you define or run in the first cell, you can access in the next cell. So it operates like it's a script. But the reason I think these are so accessible is because if you combine this with something like Cursor, which is the editor that I'm using here. Cursor is an editor that for editing code. But the cool thing about this is that, like, I use this for processing data. Like, for instance, this is analyzing for a particular, I analyzed a bunch of social media posts for a bunch of e-com platforms. And so this is looking at this. So then you can generate graphs. And again, I didn't write any of this code. So I use Cursor. If I just hit Command K and I'll turn on my dictate mode, and I'll just tell the AI, this is what I want. And it'll spit out all this code. So I didn't write this code because I'm not good at matplotlib. I fight with this all the time. Yeah, Cursor, C-U-R-S-O-R. It's a bit of a programming thing. There is a subscription, but you can get a free version that you can get into it and play with it. But if you can get your hands on data, there's lots, you can just pay money. For a little bit of money, you can go out on the internet and find data everywhere, right? So this is something I love to do. Go out and grab data, and then I can say, hey, we just looked at this platform. This is their, again, I didn't generate this graph. AI generated the code that generated this graph for me, right? Does Cursor work with our notebook or just, I don't know how to answer that question. Our notebook. Cursors, so the feature of Jupyter Notebooks that works in Cursors is that Cursor is built off of VS Code, and VS Code has a built-in support for Jupyter Notebooks. The only thing you need to do when you try to run this is it's going to ask you for your Python environment, which can be a little tricky to set up. So when you try to execute that cell, it's going to say what Python environment. So then if you're on a, whatever computer, you may need to install Python. There might be a little bit of Googling to get this set up. Once it's set up, it's a beautiful thing, because you can just start to arbitrarily run these cells and do stuff. And so so I use this all the time. I do this for analysis for clients, right? So then I took all of these posts for these e-com providers, and I did a little script, or I had Claude generate the script for me to run all of the posts, thousands and thousands of them, through a custom GPT to categorize them for me. And then, so these are the categories for this particular provider. This is the categories of the content they're posting. And then if we look down, I actually really like this graph. So this is the engagement. So me and ChatGPT had a little bit of a conversation about how we should rank engagement based on comments, so on and so forth. And then we came up with what we thought was a good engagement score. And then so this is a scatter plot of the engagement score over time for this particular provider. And we can see these sort of blue dots across the bottom. This is all the Facebook posts. The orange scattered dots, that's all Instagram. And then the green scattered dots at the end, that's LinkedIn, right? Which is just, it's interesting. Christopher, I see you're trying to reach out. Do you want to DM me on TikTok? And I will, I'll send you I do have Signal. I'm just brand new to it. So feel free to reach out. We'll connect. So then digging in deeper, I want to see some of the engagement score by category. And I'm kind of just like pivoting these graphs. Again, I didn't write any of this code. Cursor wrote all of this code for me because it's using Claude under the hood or whatever, because I suck at data science. And so I just want to know, what's performing, what's doing this, what's doing that. I really like these these heat maps. So then this one is like the engagement score by category and post type. So behind the scenes content, so on and so forth. Yeah. Everybody loves a good word cloud. So yeah, this is Jupyter Notebooks. There's a few hurdles to getting into it and getting it running, but if you can get in there, let me see if I can find my favorite graph here. Bear with me. Not that one. I posted this one on my TikTok. I'm pretty sure it's in here. This one here. We talked about this last time on my last live. I wanted to know, and actually somebody asked like if we could figure this out over time, but I wanted to know based on the volume of, if we categorize all of the content, just based on the volume of how much these companies are posting in all of these different categories, what does the average engagement look like across that? And so the engagement on the left appears the highest over here on this entertaining content, which I mean, and if we go over here down this one tall pink bar here that says educational content, which has the most volume, the engagement's lower. And that's not necessarily to say that content's not necessary or it doesn't have value. It was just a question I had. I just kind of wanted to see, what does that look like? So anyway, that's Jupyter Notebooks. It's a bit of a distraction from our main topic today, but somebody asked. So I use Jupyter Notebooks for this every single day. I'm always scraping and analyzing data. It's one of my favorite things to do because I never know what I'm going to get. Here's another really great graph. So Product demonstrations for this did really well on LinkedIn. If we actually get rid of this, there's this Instagram column here. The engagement is pretty consistent on Instagram. If we get rid of this outlier on LinkedIn right here, we can see that Instagram performed fairly well across all categories. Facebook's a crapshoot. The engagement on Facebook is just, it's not there. And YouTube is one of those things where you just have to be on there anyway. This does not connect to a data source unless you write the code for it. But again, I don't write the code, so I just use, because this is it's based on VS Code, but it's called Cursor. Then again, all of this code, I don't write this. So if I want to change this word cloud, or I want to run this or whatever, basically I can just select this, hit Command K, and now I'm interacting with Cursor, and I can give it instructions, and it will use AI to regenerate the code for me. So this is what my daily process looks like. This is mostly what my day job is. The data from this comes from me scraping it off the internet, and I'll use typically something like Bright Data, or there's lots of stuff out there. Man, if you got $10, you can get a mountain of data off the internet. We were just looking at this because we were talking about scraping data off a website. So my current task, yeah, Puppeteer, you could use Puppeteer, and I do regularly. I use Puppeteer when I'm interacting with websites or systems that don't have an API, but I need to enter a lot of data. I did this the other day for a client where I needed to go and modify several hundred records of a site, and I used Cursor and Claude to write a little script that logged me in, navigated to the thing. It actually took the data I had and it retrieved the data from the site, and it compared them, and it showed it in a dialog that said, here are the changes that I'm proposing, and then I could click a checkbox and say that update this change, and it would save the record and move on to the next one. I wrote all of that in Puppeteer, including the dialogue and everything, in less than an hour. It was fantastic. Well, I lie. I didn't write that. Cursor wrote that. I don't write code anymore. Okay. Yeah, Christopher, send me a direct message. We'll take it from there. So what I'm trying to do right now, but before the live was cut off, which was my mistake. But what I'm trying to do now is scraping ethical? Well, let me ask you this. Do you use ChatGPT, Ellis? And I apologize that that's like a bit of a baited question. ChatGPT, OpenAI, I'm certain, has scraped the entire internet to create that. They've scraped the entire public internet. So I think that the question of ethics around scraping is, what are you going to do with the data? I think there are lots of systems. I think it's interesting that we used to, yeah, I mean, like, and even you're having conversations with ChatGPT, unless you've explicitly gone in. Let me show you this checkbox, because, excuse me, you probably haven't done it, but if you go into ChatGPT, you go into your settings, and you go into security. Is it security? No. Personalization, not memory. Somebody help me out. Where's the little checkbox? They keep moving stuff around. Data controls. Here we are. Under data controls, there's this one here, and the wording is really innocuous. Improve the model for everyone. You know what that means is every conversation and everything you paste into ChatGPT, they're using it to train their data. Why? Because they've run out of data. All of these large LLM providers, they've scraped the entire internet. They've scraped everything publicly available. And then probably more than that. And so they want you to use voice mode. There's no question. They want you to use voice mode and have conversations. Because unless you've shut this off, the improve the model for everyone, unless you shut that off, they're using your information. They're using everything you paste into ChatGPT to improve it. So anyway, is scraping ethical? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. it's sort of, I guess there's an argument that if it's publicly facing, then you have some right to use that information for your own purposes, I suppose. I don't know the legalities of it. If you're scraping some third-party website and selling that data, you could probably expect to get sued. There's a ton of lawsuits going on with these LLM providers, especially around copyright stuff, right? So it'd be interesting to see where some of that stuff goes. Rube says, would you say Cursor is worth using? I've been using it, but my free trial ran out. I use it every day. Absolutely. And actually, the 500 credits I give you or whatever for 20 bucks is not enough. It saves me so much time. I don't have to type. And actually, I have I've been at the computer for 25 years, so if I sit at the computer all week, I struggle to type even. Undiagnosed RSI, I guess you'd say. And so now I use voice mode with Cursor, and I don't type at all. It's fantastic. And it just writes the code. It's good. It's accurate 9 times out of 10. We still get in a fight. I am screaming at Cursor every once in a while because it's just Claude is being stupid or something. But yeah, I think it's worth it, especially if you're coding every day. Nostalgic Pixel says, you can also prompt it to make it act like anything you want up to an extent. Oh, so I missed your first comment there. Sorry about that. Nostalgic says, hi, there's something called LLM Unity for Unity Engine. You can put LLM into it and you can speak to it. That's fantastic. You can prompt it and make it act like anything you want up to an extent. I'll have to check that out. LLM Unity. Let me pull up a tab. There's so much stuff popping up all over the place. It's hard to keep up with it. And I do try. That's why I stay on TikTok, is because I follow a lot of creators in the AI space. And I promote them as well, because there's so much going on right now. It's hard to keep on top of all of it. GPT was made from commoncrawl.org. I will check that out. Maintains a free open repository of web crawl data that can be used by anyone. Cool. I'd be interested to know how often this is updated, or if it's like what the refresh is, how often it's refreshed. But that's cool. That's super cool. I've played with Windsurf a bit. I think the interesting thing, Ellis, is there's a lot of movement in this space right now. I had a good friend of mine. We were both using Cursor for a bit. When I saw Windsurf, I mentioned it. He tried it out, said, I like Cursor better. I like the Composer. But then he came from Copilot, GitHub's Copilot. And he really likes the code spaces. And then GitHub just released a bunch of new features. The space is moving really fast right now. So we're going to see a lot of changes. Even I see just like Cursor's constantly releasing new features. They have a new agent thing and all this stuff. Like everything's going to move really fast. So I'm always trying them out. And as long as it's getting the job done for me, it's good enough. Okay. Yeah, we can be certain that OpenAI, again, unless you have that shut off, they're definitely using your voice. They're using your conversations. LSCI says, AI helps me because of RSI and arthritis too. Absolutely. Let me pull that up. This is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because if you follow me for very long at all, you'll find that I'm a little bit cynical sometimes. What I consider myself to be a cynical optimist. So if I go to my, where is it at here? This one. So software development skills needed before AI. Problem solving, critical thinking, system design, debugging, software analysis, test design, mentoring, communication. Typing. Software development skills needed after AI is all of those except for the typing part. Because seriously, Cursor does all of the typing for me, which I think is fantastic. It's actually rejuvenated some projects that I've been putting off, because by the time I'm done work at the end of the day, I struggle to be at the computer. And so I have personal projects I haven't worked on, and Cursor especially coming out made it basically rejuvenated my passion for diving back into projects. I jumped back into some old projects, got them up and running again, cleaned them up a little bit, did a few things that I've been wanting to do for quite a while really quickly, because honestly, because I just didn't have to type. Let me get caught up with my comments here. Yeah, I'm going to have to try Windsurf again because I imagine there's some new features coming out there. Derek says, looking forward to learning from you and connecting at some point. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a background in software engineering, and I like to think that I try to approach things practically, but I also, I study, I want to say business strategy, but it's more technology strategy. And I find that the biggest problem that all organizations have the same two problems. And one is change and the other one's communication. It doesn't really matter what business you're in. All businesses have those problems. So, and I heard someone recently say on TikTok, another creator I follow, stop using jargon, I think was what she said. And just made me realize, which ties into a lot of the marketing stuff I've been researching lately, which is like, if we can find a way to make sure, my whole thing is about bridging the technology gap, helping people catch up a little bit or utilize technology better in their businesses. And I realized that most of that problem is a communication problem. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the content. I try to bridge those worlds a little bit if I can. Christopher says, I'm afraid it's going to make a bunch of bad programmers later. I think you were talking about, I think it's how we get, I feed into the AI as much as possible. I think, I would hope that it's just another tool, AI. I know there's some studies recently about how organizations are using AI, and they were saying that there was not an increase in productivity across their development teams because it didn't create more. It didn't create more productive teams. What it did was create more pull requests, and they saw a 40% increase in bugs or something like that. Right. So all of those things that are critical to software engineering are still there. You still have to review the code. You cannot, like, I know that all of these AI, the AI salespeople are trying to sell you on the idea that you can just plug in an AI agent and it's just gonna write all your code and do what you want. And I'm not convinced. That's what I'll say. I'm not convinced. I've not seen that yet. All of the systems that I work with right now are pretty, they need a lot of hand-holding. They need gray matter to steer the wheel. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And at the point where you can just give an LLM an objective, or an agentic system an objective, and it can just self-improve and do all of those things. I heard the, what was it, the CEO of whatever, Google or Microsoft or whatever, the other day say that, they were worried about that future, but then we still had to race towards it. And I just think that's super annoying that nobody's, that we will race towards it and create a scenario where it will not, AI could be one of those things that would just benefit so many people. And unfortunately, it's not being used for that. But we'll see. Hey, Tentacle. Right on. Good to see you. Derek says, same here. I also support them using RMM and other cloud tools. Yep. Oh, I missed a question. Where's the best place to collab with DevOps people to create business opportunities with AI? Boy, that's a great question. Why not TikTok? I mean, I guess there are spaces. Find a Discord or something. But yeah, if it's something that you're, yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure how to answer that one. I think if you're looking for, if you have solutions for DevOps that utilize AI, then maybe reaching out strategically to different organizations, maybe within your network. Hey, Mineth, welcome. Microsoft has a great community for this, says Derek. Yeah. Share a link or something if you have one. We can look into it. All right, I think I'm caught up on my questions. We were talking about, I'm building out a system where, today I'm building out a personal assistant. I just came up with this idea this morning. How can I improve my own business with a bit of an AI assistant? And I thought, you know what would be really helpful to me is I want a personal assistant that can do two things. It can give me some prep before my kickoff meeting with a client. So I want to scrape their website, maybe even scrape their socials a little bit. I want a summary of what they're doing. And then after I have a discovery or kickoff or discovery with a client, I use AI systems to capture notes in those calls. So when I get a transcript of those calls, I want that to go into the same system so that I've got a custom assistant just for each client that I can add more documents to and interact with as I'm building out and even some actions. If I could have it automate the process of building out a process document, even if it's just a draft. There's a few different scenarios where that would be really helpful to me. It would just save a lot of time. It would save me a lot of time in the prep work, and it would help me to organize my thoughts. One of the challenges about being in the automation space is that there are about 50% of the automations that we do for clients, they're exactly the same. And then the other 50% of the automations we do for clients are just like wildly different. And that's the beautiful thing about the automation space right now, is that we're just having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday. If you wanted a custom CRM, and it sounds ridiculous, if you'd come to me 10 years ago and said, I want a custom CRM for my business, I'd have said, hope you have a lot of money or a lot of time or both. And also that's ridiculous. But now if you came to me and said, I want a custom CRM for my business, I'd sit down with Cursor or maybe some other tool, or even just like Airtable, and just be like, all right, here's your opportunity pipeline. And, in an afternoon, we could come up with something that was specific to you. Because if you look at these different CRMs that are out there right now, they all generally do the same thing, and they all have all these features bolted on, and you don't need most of them. And you might find that none of them do that exact thing that you want, right? That's the annoying thing about SaaS. But now you could put something together today really quickly that would match your use case. That's the cool thing about automation. So, but that being said, every business has two problems. One is change, one's communication. And communication is a big thing. So when I have meetings with clients, I always record the meetings so I can go back and watch them, because I always miss something in a meeting. And if I can get those transcripts and everything into one place and have an LLM assist me, clarifying my thoughts, have it so it understands my process, and then also look for opportunities and other things that I might have missed, that's going to save me a lot of time. Because when you run your own business, you spend a lot of time just organizing things. A couple more questions here. So Dharma says, funny how ChatGPT went away from the free model and now has to get paid. Yeah, well, they've sunk $1 billion into that system, so they're going to have to at some point. You can't just keep spending VC money forever. Duke says, how can I create my own assistant's AI? What's your use case? What problem are you trying to solve? Gary says, what's your favorite work communication tool outside of email? Slack. I use Slack. I'll also use Teams. If a client's using Teams, I'll connect with them on Teams. If they're using Slack, I'll send them a private channel on Slack just to stay in contact that way. The thing I like about Slack is you have designated channels. So typically I will set up, there's always two types of channels that I use. And I haven't found a way to do this in Teams nicely. It's kind of annoying that way. But on Slack, there are communication channels where people talk. And then there are automation channels where we get notifications. And I'll typically set up automation channels around specific themes so that we can get notifications around if it's SaaS or payment related or something like that, like get notifications about something was sold or a refund was issued or something. All of those go into one channel. If it's notifications about infrastructure or some process that went down, then there'll be like alerts, something that needs looked into. That's the thing I like Slack for, is it's very flexible that way. The only thing about Slack is don't mix your automation and communication channels. So if you have a channel where people are like, is general or discussion or something like that, don't start sending automated messages in there, because then it just creates noise, right? I'll always set those in another channel where they can just be like, I know if any of these 3 automation channels, these notification channels are lit up, there's a notification in there, somebody needs to go look at it. But if you put it in the channel where everybody's having discussion, things get lost. Okay, Dylan says, true, but they train on our data. It should be free. I think I'd thought that all AI would drive towards free eventually. It still might. Investors are going to want their money back, though. So yeah, they have to build a use case around. At the end of the day, yeah, it should be free, or if there aren't free systems popping up, there probably will be. Have you played around with Azure, OpenAI, and OpenAI Studio? No, not much. I can't say I'm into the Microsoft environment too much. I'm in there a little bit. I've worked in Azure DevOps and a few of those different systems. OpenAI Studio, I'll have to have a look at that. I'll just pop and open a tab here. OpenAI Studio. Give me some stuff to look at after the live. I Can Scroll says, what I'm missing, I guess, is AI solutions that targets managers and employees instead of enterprises. What's your use case? I Can. Targets managers and employees. Is it a communication problem you're trying to solve? Is it planning, organization? What are you trying to fix? Gary says, we use it as the same case for our transportation company. Oh, I see. Yeah, the Slack conversation. It's the thing about sending notifications into a conversation channel is if an alert comes in and then there are 15 conversations after that, you got to scroll all the way back to find something important that you need to look at. So typically we'll set up an alerting channel so alerts or important stuff is in there. There might be a little discussion there, but we'll take it to another channel. And then that way, that's a part of systemizing business, and Slack is really good for that. Which tools do you use to build an AI agent? If it's like a chat bot, I'll use usually something like VoiceFlow. If it's agentic, sometimes if it's just agentic and just doing my own stuff, sometimes I'll do that offline. I've looked into Cassidy a little bit. There's tools out there. There's so many. I don't do a ton of agentic stuff right now. I should be doing more. Just to be up on it. Derek says, well, they basically own OpenAI, runs on their Azure infrastructure. Yeah, that makes sense. Is it free, Derek? That's the question, I think. I got a few conversations going here. So, export B2B sales from I Can Scroll. So the original question was, what I'm missing, I guess, is AI solutions that targets managers and employees instead of enterprises for export B2B sales. I think for me, that's still a little bit too generic. I'd need to know more about the context and about maybe either what opportunities or problems you're looking to solve. Yeah, I saw that Microsoft bought a good chunk. Tentacle, what's your take on GTD and To-Do apps? Do you have any pains using those? Getting things done I looked at a while ago. To-do apps. I use Notion. Man, I'm the wrong person to be asking about organization apps. I've used every one under the sun. I used Asana for a while. GTD I looked at. I like the idea. And then my wife uses is into like the, what is that called? It's where you have a traveler's notebook and you have a very specific system for marking things that are getting done. Not an app, mind you. Can't think of what it's called in this moment. I'm embarrassed to show off my Notion because it's a mess. My lists have lists and they're scattered and they're all over. Every time I go in, I try and organize stuff. I did that this morning where I was like, okay, I know I got a certain number of stuff I need to get done today. And I went in and I created an archive column and I moved some stuff around, organized, and I cleaned out the to-do list because it was no longer relevant, that column. And I'm like, yeah, I got about 7 things I need to get done. And as soon as I cleared out that column, and I was looking at that and I was like, okay, what were they? What were those things? I now suddenly can't remember what it was I needed to get done today. I'm the worst. I Can Scroll. Prospection, achieving targets, collecting intelligence, preparing pitches, automations. Yeah, there's opportunities in all of those. I will typically tackle one. What's the one that's going to, is it collecting intelligence? Sounds like scraping data. Are you doing recon on different things? Preparing pitches? There's another whole automation there where you could say, like, if you got a template and you can just set up a bunch of stuff where you're using, you know, make.com, Zapier or something, ChatGPT, and just like pulling in a bunch of information, prepping a report for someone. I've used Google Slides for this in the past. I was really annoyed with Canva that you need an enterprise license to use their templating system. I just find that really frustrating because Canva would be such a great solution, but yeah, great use case though. Gary, for a chatbot and SMS communications with customers, use Podium. Very well done. Nice. I've been using High Level a little bit. I don't mind it. I've never tried Podium. Yeah, High Level's pretty good. I don't care for their built-in chat. I typically build my own. But for just SMS and some of that other businessy stuff, it works good. Derek says, come January, Copilot ChatGPT will be free. That's cool. I hope it's better than their Bing service. Man, I have my Windows machine. I haven't set it up yet. And every time I open that browser and Bing comes up and it's just, is it just me or is it just the worst search engine ever? And then if you scroll the wrong way, then it comes into the Copilot. I don't know if Copilot's any good. I haven't used it. But, and what is it with everybody naming their thing Copilot? Like, is it going to be, I guess Microsoft owns GitHub, so it doesn't matter that they named it that. But I just think, like, isn't there a third service called Copilot somewhere too? I just find that annoying. Yes, I drink out of jars. Derek says, yeah, I guess I'm a Microsoft guy. I live in the OneNote Microsoft To-Do, purchase Copilot and all apps. That's cool. I have friends who are in the, well, again, my background's in software. I've lived in the open source world for so long. So I used, I bailed on Windows so long ago for like Ubuntu way back 04, 05. Spent a lot of time in like different distros in Linux in the open source world. And then in I think I started using Amazon Web Services in 2010. I think they had 3 services at the time. So again, I from my perspective, the cloud game, Microsoft was a little bit late to the game. I know they have a ton of stuff now. I've always been in the AWS world and the open source world, so I didn't really get into Microsoft. And I mean, come on, Microsoft Office and Google Docs, like. Harsha says, I use Copilot for my coding stuff, free version. It doesn't get it right the first time. Yeah, you still have to, you got to kind of break it down, right? You got to, if you have any problem, so here's a tip. If you describe a complex problem to something like Copilot or some coding system, even a Cursor, Claude, ChatGPT, the trick is to break it down into the smallest task possible. Because if you just describe this big, like, I need a piece of code that does this and it does this, and if this happens, it needs to do that and make sure it does this and yada yada. Like if you can break it down into one piece, one simple thing and do it step by step by step, I found that you'll get better results. At least in my experience anyway. Any day. I build data pipelines for HR teams, for employee data, brainstorming use cases, for LLM integration, obviously sensitive data considerations. Yeah, if you can anonymize, like you can send a birthday into ChatGPT as long as it's not tied to a person, right? Or you can send a conversation as long as it doesn't name people, right? You could take an email and send it into ChatGPT if there's nothing in there that's personally identifiable. And I know it's an extra step, but that would be the way to do it. If it's data pipelines for HR teams. So depending on what it is that you're trying to do, my first question would be every single time we're talking about an automation or an LLM or something for your business, my first question is, what problem are you trying to solve? What is the worst part of your day? Like, are you just looking for a fun thing that's going to do a little bit of value add for your department? Or is there a problem that you're looking to solve here? And then once we've identified that, then dive deeper into that, right? Quality lead generation. I think I kind of have thoughts on that. How do you find clients? I'm like, oh man, how did we get here? How did we get to lead generation and finding clients? So honestly, if you want my opinion, how to find clients, start doing TikTok and lead with value. If you do something interesting and you have a good service and you talk about it, don't do from the sales side of things. You need to be giving away value for free. And then, because business today, if you want to find quality leads and whatever, you need to be, you think about this. Since we're here, since we're here, we'll talk about it for a minute. Back in the day, when I was in my first business, the way you did business is you went to a trade show. If you wanted to drum up business, I had a sign shop when I was 19 years old. And so if you wanted to get more business, you either did advertising, you bought signage and put your ads in the newspaper, and you went to trade shows. Trade shows is how businesses found you, because people would walk by and they're like, oh, you're in the sign business. I need signs for my car or my truck. How much for decals? How much for this? How much for that? Okay. So if you're in the business, I don't care what business, you could be a plumber. You could do nails. I don't care what business you do. If you want to get more clients and get more leads, and you're not on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or LinkedIn, posting short form content and long form content, if you want more leads, think about it this way. TikTok is not a social media platform. TikTok is a trade show where people are constantly walking by your booth. You just walk by my booth. How many people are here? I don't know. 15, 20 people? I can't even tell. It doesn't tell me. How many other people are in this right now? You've all stopped at my trade show booth and we're having a conversation. Okay. That's what TikTok is. So if you want leads for your business, you need to start building an audience, and don't start with like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Sale, sale, sale. Don't do that. What you want to do is be like, do you have this problem? This is a creative way I found to solve this problem. Right? Or you can get into hooks and you can get all of that kind of stuff. That's fine. I don't chase dopamine so much on my channel. I just try to talk about what I'm good at. And people stop by, and if they check it out for a minute and they leave, that's fine. You don't need to stay. But if you're not on social media right now, then you're just then money, paid ads. Spend your money on Meta and Google at $25 a click or whatever, which is fine. That works for lots of businesses. But like TikTok, there's a big hurdle in getting over, like look into things like personal brand, understand that you are your business, and then start making content and just do it. Somebody said, do the 100 videos or whatever. By the time you get to 30, 40, 50 videos, people start commenting and asking questions, you'll start getting an idea of what it is that your audience wants to hear about. You can start refining your message, start thinking about, and then follow other creators that are doing the same thing. I mean, like all of the ideas that I have for the stuff that I'm doing, I'm taking ideas from them. So if you want quality leads, you can't just, it's not going to be faceless videos. AI, maybe there's a strategy there, but I don't know that they're going to be quality unless you're putting value out there. I missed a whole bunch of comments. There's a whole bunch that came in really quick, so I'm going to try and get through these comments. Where were we at? We ended up in finding clients and quality lead generation. Not sure how we got there, but we spent a minute there. That's fine. Harsha says, does paid version of ChatGPT remember previous code chat history? I think it maintains a decent history, and you can have threads, right? You can just have those long-running conversations. You just have to sort of start over after a while. But yeah, it operates much like the free version that you were used to. All right. Any interest in some contract work for a company? Gary, reach out. I do. That's all I do. I do contract work for lots of companies. Harsha says, yes, it does everything you write. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for taking care of that. What if you give personal information from email to ChatGPT? Dylan asks. Just be cautious. I see people that just wire their email into ChatGPT, and it's like, I don't I don't. I'm very selective about what I put into ChatGPT. Just putting somebody's name in there. I'm on the side of like, you need to be mindful, and there are laws around this as well, but we need to be mindful about where we're sending our customers information, because there's different laws in different states and different countries about that kind of stuff. So just be mindful, especially if you're a business and if you're in SaaS, and if as we move towards more and more security certifications and data protection regulations and all that kind of stuff, there are regulations in place about disclosing where we forward our information to, and then what happens if that information is breached. So just be aware of that before you just arbitrarily plug. Let me pull up my risk complexity framework, because it's a good time to talk about that. Right? I call it a framework. It's not. It's oh yeah, I forgot I'm using my it's my Mac. Silly. So basically the idea behind this framework, it's not a framework, it's just like 4 boxes. But there's 2 axes here. One's risk and one's complexity. So if your scenario is low risk, low complexity, that's great. But as soon as you're dealing with customer data, customer information, that falls into the high risk category for me, even if it's low complexity. So I want to start being more cautious about how I'm dealing with that, right? Financial data, high risk. Legal data, high risk. Client data, customer data, high risk. Customer interactions, high risk. I know there's a lot of systems out there. There's a lot of systems out there that are like, hey, the funniest one for me is Salesforce, right? Salesforce hired how many new salespeople to sell their AI sales thing? Which is like, I can't tell if this is satire. But sales, I think there's parts of the process that probably could be automated really well with AI or help a sales team. Again, doing prospecting, researching clients, all of the stuff that you need to approach your customers with value. And the bulk of the value is in your relationships, right? Showing a commitment, building a relationship, not just like, how much money can I get from you? If you're coming at business like, how much money can I get from you? Then those relationships are short-lived, because they're 100% transactional. A lot of the people I do business with, we want to help each other out. We want to be customers. We want to work with each other because we value that relationship, and there's much more value in that. And then I'm never going to put AI in between me and my customers in that way, because it would jeopardize that relationship. I think that's super important. But I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to do it that way. That's just the way I choose to do it, because I think it's important. Okay. Missed a bunch more comments. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up here. So yeah, just be cautious about personal information. If it's your personal information and you want to put it into ChatGPT, go nuts. Just be mindful of what you do with your client's data. How is the automation engineer field robotics? I'm not sure. Robotics has been around for a while. I can't answer that question intelligently. I don't know enough about it. Harsher says TikTok is getting banned in the USA in 2025. I think so. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Donald Trump's going to be president, so obviously anything could happen in the US now. And then the Supreme Court decided to take up that case. I'm not following it super closely, but we'll see. Somebody said like there's going to be riots in the streets if they do. I don't know. I thought I read somewhere that there's 180 million Americans on TikTok. So I don't know. They have the creator fund, so a lot of people are depending on that. I can't say. Let me get caught up here. Gary says, imagine after every successful make scenario you do a TikTok dance. I could use an AI avatar generator for dancing, because that'd be good. That would actually be something worth watching. Kyle, can you make an automation for this? I used to work where I had to go to a website named Ritchie Brothers, and scrape data for specific equipment and put it into Excel. Ritchie Brothers is an auction site, right? Are you in Alberta by any chance, or is Ritchie Brothers, are they just a Canadian company? Kyle, I hope you're still with us. Absolutely. Yep. You could 100% scrape data from Ritchie Brothers and put it into a website. That'd be a great use for AI and or that'd be a great use for automation. And then if you needed to scrape that or categorize that for some reason, then you could use AI for that as well. If you want help with that, Kyle, just reach out to me. Just to send me a DM. Nexus Academy, were you a software engineer before you started doing this? Yes. I've been software engineering for about 25 years. And I still write some software. Well, I don't write any software. Claude writes my software for me. Derek, sysadmin for transportation company, create automations to dispatch. Man, there's got to be some interesting use cases in transportation. All the logistics, coordination, all that kind of stuff. Interesting. Makes good for prototyping. Yes, 100%. And that's what I use it for generally. That's what we're doing today. Actually, we started off with a prototype. I had this concept to build out a very, very basic personal assistant today that would just do some recon for me. Thank you. I'll come out in a minute. And so that's what we're prototyping here today. Mr. Rogers. I'll answer that question in just a second. Hey, Eclipse, I was wondering where you were. Kyle, can you work with ERP systems, NetSuite or Oracle ERP? I think the real question is, do you want to work with ERP systems like NetSuite or Oracle ERP? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Definitely. Yeah, you definitely can. Yeah. Again, reach out. We'll chat. See if we can come up with some ideas for you. Mr. Rogers, I was tinkering with an idea this morning. I had this idea that I wanted to build out, start building out a personal assistant that could do a little bit of data gathering for me. Thank you. For when I have an appointment booking come in on my calendar. So right now I have just an online booking calendar, and when an appointment comes in, I wanted the assistant to take, if the domain of the email that came in, when the email comes into my inbox, I'll set up a rule that will automatically forward it to this assistant. And then this assistant will evaluate that and say, okay, is this a business email? If it is, grab the domain and we'll go scrape the website just a little bit, like not all of it, but like just enough. Replacing a manual process that I do. So I do manual recon. Recon's a horrible word. I do manual research on, all right, I got a call coming up with this person at 11 o'clock. I'll check their email. I'll look at it. Then I'll go to their website, check out their products and services, read the blog a little bit. I'll just do a little bit of research so I understand. I get in the headspace of what this client is doing before I get into that meeting, because I want to understand. I want to be prepared. So that's sort of the first step. That's what we're sort of building out. And this sort of does that right now. The next thing I want this to do is I want it to create a custom assistant in OpenAI and attach that information to the vector store, attach that information to that AI assistant so that I can come back to it. Because the next step is, now when I go into a kickoff call with that client, I'm going to get another email eventually from my transcription software using Otter or something like that. It'll also automatically forward into the same assistant. That assistant will take and add that transcription into that same custom GPT, so that later on when I'm doing brainstorming around what automations or what systems we might want to tackle for that client, I have a personal assistant who has a working memory of all of our conversations. And even in theory, I could send emails from that client in there. I don't usually send customer emails into ChatGPT because I don't want personal information in there. So I'll think about that. But if it just had context about the customer's business, the client business, and it had context around our meetings, that would be enough. Hey, Gary, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope we get a chance to chat. If I can get it to do that, that would be enough. That would save me probably 4 to 6 hours a week. And so we've got just the bare bones here, the bare bones. We have this email webhook, our first part of the process here. So we can send an email in here right now. It'll pluck out the text, and then it sends it into my custom assistant. This isn't just ChatGPT. This is a custom assistant we were working on right here. And then we're giving the custom assistant some delegation powers by adding in functions. So we just added a function early on the live called Summarize Website. And the way this works is when you set up your message and assistant, again, this isn't create a completion, this is message and assistant. So you have a custom assistant that you're using. It will recognize that you have functions set up, custom functions, and then you can specify the URL. So make.com is managing that part of it, where the way this works behind the scenes is we send in a message to, or in this workflow, sends a message into our custom assistant. And the custom assistant says, instead of responding with an actual response, it responds with, I need to call this custom function. And make.com recognizes that, oh, the custom function you want to call is named Summarize Website, and so it knows to use this URL to fulfill that. And then once that's fulfilled, it'll send it back into ChatGPT, that custom assistant, again to finish off. So the thing that's great about this is, in a nutshell, I guess I'll say, is that we have a second workflow here. This workflow receives a URL. It will pull down all of the website data, or sorry, it'll pull down the web page from that URL. It'll turn it into text and return it. And so we've given access to this particular function. We'll call this a function, website summarizer, and actually we'll name it that, just to make the connection there. It's called Summarize Website, and so that's exactly what this workflow is. It's our Summarize Website function. So we're connecting the pieces together, allowing our ChatGPT custom assistant access to this so that when it thinks it's appropriate, it can go out and scrape this website data. And so our next step here is to add in another function. My goal here with this custom assistant is to keep building in functions so that just like I would train a staff member to do different tasks in my business, I'm going to give this custom assistant more and more functions so that it knows, here's what you can do to scrape website information from a customer. Here's what you can do to create tasks around in my Notion or something. Here's what you can do to create personalized custom assistants for each of the customers you want to do. Here's what you can do to access my calendar, right? We'll start adding in different functions so that I can delegate tasks off to my personal assistant. Now, it's a bit of a prototype. I just had the idea this morning. I've seen other people do this on TikTok. I've seen other people talk about this on TikTok. I don't know how. I've seen these very elaborate make.com scenarios that supposedly do all of this kind of stuff. I like to keep mine a little simpler if I can, because I have to maintain it. And then I think at the end, I was just visualizing that the way I want to be able to interact with this custom assistant is through email or Slack. I think that's what I'm thinking. So if I have emails come in, I can just automatically forward specific emails into this, and it will just know what to do with it. It will kick off some automated process. And then it will return with a summary, or it will message me in Slack, depending. I haven't worked that part out yet. I don't know what that looks like. But I don't want this to just operate blindly behind the scenes. I kind of want to know what it's doing. If someone books an appointment, I get a notification right now in Slack from my booking system, but then this system could kick off this workflow and maybe, once it wrapped up 30 or 60 seconds later, also post a message into my Slack and say, here's a summary of the website, or here's a summary of their business, key highlights. Or it could maybe do that 15 minutes before my meeting. Hey, you've got a meeting with Mr. Rogers in 15 minutes. Here's a summary here's a review of their site so far. That's the idea here. So we're prototyping a little bit in make.com. And it's a little bit it's a little bit of a naive system, so it doesn't scrape. The thing we were just looking at, we went on a pretty wide detour through a whole bunch of comments, and then we sort of landed back here. We were just looking at Appify for scraping data. Now I do have some requirements around scraping, because if they have a ton of web pages, I don't want the whole thing. I would like to be able to make this scraper a little bit more intelligent if I could, and say, I want to be able to just give me the 10, maybe the 10 top level web pages. And then if there's like products and services, maybe a few of those pages, and then maybe 10 blog posts, and that's it. If they have 500 web pages on their site, I don't want all of them. I just want a little bit of control. And that might be wishful thinking. Like there isn't, it's probably wishful thinking that there's something out there that already does this. I might need to build that myself, which isn't the end of the world. I won't do that live on TikTok today, or maybe that's tomorrow's live. We'll build out a scraper tomorrow. Start to build some logic into our automations a little bit. But I'm kind of just, I'm going to have a look at a couple of these. Is there something out there, a little bit of a smart, not scraper, but a smarter crawler that we could say, hey, if I just give you a little bit of money, can you just give me back exactly what I want? So this one's built on top of this service. Let's go have a look at that. Crawly is a web scraping and browser automation library. You know what? Actually, oh man, I just remembered there's another service. What the heck was that called? Because I tried to solve this problem about 2 months ago. This is the problem with being a bit of having so many projects on the go. I actually think I found a really great service for this, I think 2 months ago, and now I can't remember what it's called. It was a startup, and they would do almost exactly this thing. Gonna have to go back and try and find it now. Mike says, I used it to make complex simulations. You can use those tools to create things also. Oh, I see. Mike Diamond. Sorry, I missed your first comment. Export to make server objects. Make is good for prototyping. Export to make server objects. I'm not sure I quite understand the question. Make server objects. I use it to make complex simulations. You can use these tools to create things also. Sorry, I lost the context on that one. Mike Diamonds. Oh, I missed another comment up here. Pt.2, I want to consult directly with you. Have you teach me how to create one agent? You can reach out to me in my DMs. I do private consultations. That's funny that, I don't know if Kyle's still here or not. Ritchie Brothers. I'm like, oh, Ritchie Brothers is popular back home where I'm from. Making your own GPT on whose infrastructure? I am not making my own GPT. I am just building out an automation. I'm building out a bit of a personal assistant here, but we're trying to figure out, I'm trying to rack my brain now because I saw a service. I saw a service recently that looked exactly like what I was looking for, which is basically I want to say, go crawl this site, but I only want certain things. I want to be able to specify a little bit. Will other people be able to use? Absolutely. I can download these blueprints, and I do have like a little bit of free stuff in my bio. I'm still building that out. It takes time. If I know, I don't have a newsletter or any of that kind of stuff yet, so you can just go in there and grab stuff. And there's limited. As I build out custom GPTs and have blueprints, I put them in there. So I'll definitely put these in there. There'll be a little bit of wiring to get it working. And I don't think the custom assistant is something I can just export necessarily, but these will be on YouTube afterwards. So if you want to come back and watch the whole thing again. Gumloop. Is that a crawler? Oh, it's an AI automation framework. Let's go check it out. Automate any workflow with AI. I just about built a workflow startup a bit ago, more related to testing. It was called Glue Gun. And then we pivoted and we moved towards a system for testing AI agents or testing AI chatbots. It's cool that we're seeing so many workflow engines kind of jump out of the, and we will, because it's the thing that AI has done is it's allowed us to do systemize those low intelligence decisions, right? The low risk stuff, which is kind of nice. Ask AI anything. Web scraping. Cool. That looks kind of fun. Do they have a free tier? That's my next question. Man, I have so many SaaS subscriptions. So 1,000 credits per month. They are SOC 2 Type 2. That's pretty incredible. And concurrent runs. Let's go. I have to sign up for this. Yeah, Dharma says, we're literally thinking and doing in real time. What's really cool is you can, like we just talked about Jupyter Notebooks a minute ago. There's still high-level concepts you need to understand if you're thinking about like building some software. Like it doesn't matter if you're using code or if you're using a no-code, low-code, no-code, like Bubble or something like that. You still have to understand the logic. You still have to understand, okay, if a user does this, I need this to happen. And you still need to think about your data structures. You still need to think about your database. You still need to think about how your user flows and your data flows and like backend stuff. You still have to think about all of those things. But if you get that, if you understand how that works, if you start to understand logic, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I always recommend, like even in my own projects, start simple. Just start with the simplest use case. Just solve a small problem, kind of like we're doing here today with the assistant. One little problem at a time. Then the cool thing about the tooling is you can use the no-code tools, but if you make the jump from no-code into something like Cursor, or I always forget the name of that other one. Tailsail, Windsail, Sailwind. I forget what it's called. If you make the jump into a little bit of coding, you still don't have to do the code. You still need to be there for the logic and the thinking and understanding the high-level stuff. And you can go a long way getting like, what's that new one? Lovable.dev I've heard about. I haven't played with it yet. Windsurf, thank you. If you can make the jump to code a little bit, I'm not advocating, like just become a programmer or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that the difference between the no-code, low-code tools and actual coding is very low now for me, because either way, you are still responsible for a lot of the same decisions. And you don't have to be writing the code. You can just describe to the tool what it is that you're wanting to do and have it build out the little chunks and then test it out. I make MVP says, lovable.dev is outstanding. I'm no code and I've got my website almost ready. I've held off from some of these tools again because I am a software engineer. So I have an entire software engineering environment pre-built and ready to go. And so I can spin up things fairly quickly. And I should use more of them. I do try to use more of them just to be aware of the tooling that's out there and to make sure I understand the options that are available to different people. But I definitely fall back on what I know, just because it's what makes me productive. What would you say, TikTok says, what would you say is the best AI automation platform? none of these platforms are specifically AI automation platforms. They're just automation platforms with AI modules. I like Make. I use Zapier, Make. I use N8N. I use LakeNode. I've used them all. I find Make is a little more accessible and user-friendly, so I tend to use that for prototyping things. I find it's just easy to use. It's intuitive. I like the way it works. I also use Zapier. It's a little older. It can be clunky, but it has a few more advanced features. Most of my automations are fairly simple. So I tend to keep it simple in whatever tool I'm using. Michael says, what's Gumloop? We were just looking at that. Somebody else, it was Living Me that recommended Gumloop because we're trying to do a little bit of scraping. And this looks to be like an workflow automation system that has web scraping baked in. So that's kind of the direction we were headed. We were just going to have a look at this and sign up. They do have a free tier. We love a good free tier, don't we? 1,000 credits per month. I wonder if that's 1,000 web pages. So this might just be enough. Now, if I've got to graduate to $97 a month and for 30,000 credits, I might see how far I can make it on my free tier. First, might be worthwhile. Okay, sign me up. Yeah, let's do the Google thing. What do you need? Your mom can help you. Yes, continue. Okay, I'm an other because I never fill those out. Oh, there was a skip button. I could have clicked the skip button, but I was clicking too fast. Close the menu, I guess. Are we signed in or no? Hub. Go. I do want to scrape from websites. Now, I'm a generalist. That means I will not read the documentation and I will just click things until it works, whether that's a day or a week. Well, I'll get 3 days in and then I'll go read the documentation. That's typically how I do things, backwards. So I'm kind of hoping, run your first flow, earn 1,000 credits. I'm guessing if I send you all this link and some of you sign up, they will give me credits. But we're not going to do that. Oh, I see. No, if I follow their steps, I'm going to get my free credits. I have to go through, I have to click on the bits. Okay, we're not going to do this right now on the live. I'll come back to this. So they want me to walk through the tutorial. I have to earn my credits from these people. And I'm already like, no, too complicated. Moving on. Even though you're recommended. You're highly recommended by Living Me. But I've got to read. You're making me read and earn my credits. Extract data to this flow. Yeah, I'll come back to this. It looks good. I appreciate the recommendation. I'll come back to it. Let me get caught up on my comments here. Jay says, facts. As someone who makes professional software, these new tools are the new floor. Agreed. I don't think AI is but I guess AI can replace, but I heard somebody say AI is not replacing you. People who are using AI are replacing you. I think that's probably more accurate. And I think that we should be looking for ways. It's opened a lot of doors, I think, or AI can open a lot of doors, especially if you're thinking about so many people getting into the AI consulting space, automation space. All these things are very accessible. Or if you have a startup idea, like I am not a mobile dev. I've tinkered with it over the years. But I got a couple mobile apps I would launch because I know I can just have Cursor write the Flutter for me and be done with it. I make MVPs. You're a developer. I hope to get your knowledge. I could really be as creative as possible. It's more so just experience tinkering with things. Find a project. or projects and just keep working at it. It's more just, I mean, I respect people who are in accounting that have accounting or legal or any field really that just have a lot of experience. That's really what it comes down to. Oh man, Living Me's really trying to sell me on Gumloop. We'll come back to that. Looks good. Stephanie says, what are you trying to scrape? I've had luck writing Python scripts, Chat GPT, and VS Code. Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about that. I'm only trying to wire it into an automated process. So my goal here is, if I've got a domain, so this is from a booking. Somebody books a call with me and I take the domain from their email and I just want to go out to their website and just pull, I don't want to pull everything. I just want my agent or my assistant to reach out and grab like 10 of the top level pages, products and services, and then maybe 10 blog posts. So it's a little bit more advanced. And I might need to come back to that Gumroad, because if it'll allow me to do a little bit of smart stuff, we might have to go down that road. Oh, I see. It wants me to add extract data to the flow. Is that this one? Okay, that's done. Specify the data to extract. Click on add data. I think because my browser's so small, I'm just going to click on add data. See, I don't know what it wants. And I don't want to waste all your time trying to walk through this, waiting for my brain to catch up. Oh, I see, it's so tiny. That's why. So to your comment, Stephanie, I do a ton of stuff. I don't use VS Code specifically. I use Cursor, which is built off of VS Code, but it has all of that nice AI stuff built in there. Works great. Specify the data. So I clicked on add data. Specify the data you want to extract. Extract company name. And then we need to link the steps together. Hey, we're earning our 1,000 credits here. Link up all steps. Oh, I see there's another one here. Link that up. Run the workflow. Okay, run it. Yay. I'm still going to probably come back to this on my own time. This looks fantastic though. I've been playing a lot with, I love these tools. This actually reminds me right out of the gate of like, ooh, we got confetti. Fantastic. Love it. Hey, we earned our 1,000 credits too. Look at that. Okay. I've been playing with VoiceFlow a lot lately, and this reminds me of that. But the ability to sort of just wire bits together and do things, pretty fantastic. Dictator Cookie says, I'm using Cursor right now. Fantastic. It's only as good as the logic you give it. But yeah, I use Cursor and Jupyter Notebooks pretty much every day. So if we can get this wired up to do a tiny little bit of data scraping, I'll have to... so we're obviously going to have to put the URL in here. And then the other thing we're going to have to do is go and find out, it's called Gumroad, right? Their API, if we can get into, let's create a module in the middle of nowhere. Gumroad's on the list. So it looks like we should be able to make an API call. I wonder if this is the same Gumroad. Is the logo even the same? Nope. Go back. No, I feel like that's different. Wasn't it called Gumroad Crawler? Oh, Gumloop. That's why. Thank you. Tell my brain is getting tired. Gumloop. That would make a difference. I was confused there for a minute. So it doesn't look like they have a module. So we would have to get into the API and start to understand. And you know what? That's going to be that might be a good live for tomorrow or the next one, to just sit down and talk about APIs a little bit. So what we have here is a scenario where we need to tie into, now we're on the Gumroad again. Hold on a second. Loop. Gumloop. Look at their API and then find out, connect an API, because this is a scenario that does come up somewhat regularly. Here we've got a make.com scenario where we're using an inbuilt module, the HTTP module. We're passing in a URL, and when we run this, or at least when this is run in our scenario, it's going to run through and scrape a web page and then return the results. Now we've got a third-party system called Gumloop, which looks like it'll do some nice scraping for us, but we want to integrate that with our make.com scenario, but there's no built-in integration. So what we're going to have to do here is use their API. We want to use the HTTP module for this, and we're going to have to set that up manually. So going between the Gumloop documentation and make.com, get all of the pieces in place so that we can make that call. And that's another one of those more advanced scenarios where once you understand how APIs work and you demystify all of the jargon, I'll say, once you understand the bits and pieces, and there is some complexity there sometimes, but once you understand how that works, then you unlock a lot of pieces of the internet. And you start to have access to a lot of systems that you didn't have access to before. And as software engineers, we do this all the time. If you work in integrations or something like that, that can be your day job, just connecting these systems together, mapping data back and forth. But if you're just in automations or getting into automations and things like that, just the ability to be able to tie into an API that will allow you to access functionality before that you didn't have access to in the core library can open up a whole world of possibilities, because now any API is open to you. I had to do this recently with High Level because they don't have API endpoints for all of their functionality, and I was using the social planner for an integration for a realtor where we wanted to push a draft post into the social planner with the pictures and everything. It was ready for Facebook, but not post it yet. But they don't have an API. They don't have that's not in the make.com module for Go High Level. So we had to access the API, set up the custom token, and do all of that kind of stuff to get that in place. And it worked great once it was set up. But again, it's a little bit of an advanced scenario. This one here, we're kind of looking at, so we're looking at this Gumloop. We're eventually going to want to be able to pass in this URL. I'm not sure if I can put like variables in here. Then I'm going to have to look into this and see how refined this will let us get with the amount of scraping that we can do. And then I don't want it to go to a Google Sheet. I want it to return this as a, I guess, I mean, we could put it into a Google Sheet. I'll have to dig into this a little bit more. The web scraping. And the more I look at this API, the more I'm thinking that what it's going to do is allow us to push in a list of URLs. And with those URLs, it's going to give us back data. So if we have just that, I don't know that Gumloop's going to be the tool that we want to use. I'll have to look into this, but not on the live. We'll come back to that. And in theory, we could do that ourselves. Just going to get rid of that module. if we pretended for a minute that I was going to be doing work for, I don't want to pick on anybody in particular, but let's pick on Ritchie Brothers. Yeah. This is an auction group out of Alberta in Canada. And I think I'm going to see if I can find their sitemap. This is actually pretty interesting. I'm just going to go to the page source, see if I can find sitemap. Nope, it's not in there. Interesting. That might be a bad candidate. The thing I want to figure out how to do is, again, I don't necessarily want, this is one of those things where if I was going to consult with this, I don't want all of these different categories and listings and stuff. I basically would just want to know probably the services page, maybe financing, maybe not locations. And if there's an about page, probably this footer stuff. About Ritchie, governance, career, maybe blog. Stuff that's going to be useful for me if I'm coming into that. So this is the part of the scraper that's going to be really kind of challenging because every website's a little bit different. So if we can get a sitemap of some kind, and I mean, I guess in theory we could ask ChatGPT about this, you know, it would probably know who Ritchie Brothers was. But if we just want to arbitrarily get this data out of, you know, some website, that'll be tricky. That'll be challenging. That's the challenge. That's why we're doing it. Well, we're coming up on 4:30 local time here. I think I've been on the stream for just over a couple of hours. We got quite a bit done today. I got to put a little bit more thought into this part of our automation. I've been thinking about this for a little while. How to get to this, how to get to the point where we can just extract the information that we want from a particular website. And in theory, it's possible that we could pass just the URL into ChatGPT. Maybe one of the models could do a decent job of extracting a bunch of that information. But one of the issues is I don't particularly trust that ChatGPT if I just say, here's ritchiebrothers.com. I want to know this and this and this and this. I'm not sure that I 100% trust that it's going to give me back accurate information 100% of the time. So I would want to be a little bit more selective about the particular URLs that I passed in. Say, here's, based on the sitemap, I want information. I basically want to scrape these 25 pages and then use, and then summarize those and then take that and put that into our vector database. Maybe that's tomorrow's problem. I think I'm going to, we'll go for maybe 5 more minutes here in case there's any last questions. I can feel I'm getting a little bit tired. I've been on the live all afternoon and it's been pretty great. Lots of great questions, lots of great conversation. We've got the start of our assistant built out, which is exactly what I wanted to accomplish. It doesn't do a whole lot yet, but it's a good start. It's giving us a couple of challenges to think about, next steps, how to tackle the next challenge. If we can get those web pages off of any particular domain without too much trouble, then getting them into a vector store and a custom assistant should be pretty straightforward. Tentacle asks, do you plan to make a Discord server? It's crossed my mind. It's definitely crossed my mind. I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't like the idea of, there's a lot of creators out there. And again, I don't want to criticize necessarily people's business models and stuff, but like monetizing off communities and stuff. And I'm not really sure that that's my jam. So if I created a Discord server, because I do genuinely enjoy helping people and teaching and helping people, you know, get more into tech or understand some of these different tools. Like I genuinely like to help. The flip side of that is once you have like a community like that, then you need to moderate it. And that can be challenging. I like the idea. So I'm thinking about it. It's in the back of my mind. I think one of the first things I want to do is I have an idea for some really introductory level kind of courses that I want to put together, some free courses that I just want to try out and see how they land. And then if those went over well and it seemed like we had a direction for some of that, then a Discord or a community of some kind would make sense. So it's churning around up there a little bit. If you have ideas, I've already got some ideas just off the chats. I always learn stuff on these lives. It's fantastic. Just some of the questions that come in, questions that people have, and ideas and whatnot. So I always learn something. But if there were, so for the people that come to my lives and stuff, if there's something in particular that would be helpful for you in terms of content, or even like a micro course, I'm thinking like micro courses, like bite-sized, small, digestible, something you could consume easily, you know, at work or in your day-to-day that would just improve your day-to-day. I'm always open to hearing those kinds of ideas because that's the kind of thing that's rattling around in my head all the time is how do we make these things more accessible to people? Yeah, so I'm always open to that. Tentacle Pink says, I want to do similar stuff. Yes. I think community is important. Yep. Yeah, just a few more minutes here if there's any last questions on the live before we sign off. I'm going to need to go have some tea and take a break. Yeah, it's too late for coffee. That's too bad. Pretty sure I've had my fill of coffee today. Yeah. If you're just joining now, we're just getting ready to shut down. We've just been talking about automation, building out a custom agent this afternoon. I appreciate everybody that's jumped on the live. These lives, I am downloading and uploading them to my YouTube, so you can always go catch the replay there. If there's a piece that you missed or wanted to follow along with some of the work that we're doing, building out our personal assistants, and then, but yeah, we're gonna shut her down here in the next minute or so. Just wait for the last few comments to roll in. Hey, Stephanie, awesome. Super helpful to watch you doing this live. Definitely interested in the course. That's cool. I appreciate that feedback. Oh, I said something about being live tomorrow. Now I'm getting questions. Maybe around the same time. I'll jump on in the afternoon for a couple hours. I'm going to put some thought into how we tackle this scraping problem, because I think it would be, well, I mean, my brain just likes hard problems. But yeah, maybe around the same time. So just keep an eye out. I'll probably come across. If you're not sure, you can. There's a follow button somewhere on there or whatever. I think if you're following, you'll get the notification if I go live. So make sure click all those things. And then yeah, I appreciate everybody dropping in. It's been pretty fun. Thanks for all the questions, and we'll come back tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have a good, elegant idea for our scraping problem, and we'll see if we can take this scraper to the next step. Okay, everyone, wherever you're tuning in from the planet, I hope you have a wonderful morning or evening or afternoon. We'll talk to you again soon.